This is the Relevant Podcast.
It's episode 988, and it's a Relevant Podcast, not in Orlando, here in Virginia Beach, Virginia. I'm your host, Cameron Strang, and joining me from a room elsewhere in this house, Jesse Carey.
Hello, hello.
From Paris, France, Relevant Senior Editor, Tyler Huckabee.
Bonjour.
And from a very scary cabin in the mountains of Colorado, she looks like she might get murdered on the Zoom picture, downtown Emily Brown.
Hey, y'all.
Emily, I'm not going to lie. The way that it's framed and the lighting, which I don't know what time zone you're in, but appears to be like the darkest
dead of
night.
night.
I know.
You look like you're recording this Zoom from inside the Blair Witch Project.
That's right now. Came to mind immediately. Yes.
It's a dated reference, but I feel like it's the only accurate way to describe Emily's setup right now.
I think I just am in like a weird spot in this house. Like the window is like right in front of me. And so I think the lighting, you cannot see anything, but like, wow, even my hand disappears. It is really dark in here. I didn't realize that. I mean, right here, I'm right in the light.
Emily,
but
why is there a little girl over your shoulder right now?
It looks like you are hosting a D&D tournament in your home, like, and the camera's just pivoting.
Who is that pale person in colonial dress over your right shoulder?
You know, I've been seeing them too. I keep trying to talk and they don't talk back. I don't know what's going on.
Well, look at us with our summer vacations. True. Paris and Airbnb in Colorado.
Yeah.
Cohen and I road tripped up the East Coast to come visit the Careys here in Virginia. It's been lovely.
And I took them on a thrilling adventure yesterday, guys. Well, I took Cameron and Cohen. And this is how you know you're getting older in life, too, and just values change. We went to a nautical museum and toured a real battleship yesterday. That was our recreational fun. And I have no shame in that because it was an awesome battleship.
Awesome.
Jesse,
that sounds super cool.
Historic Norfolk, Virginia, with the ships and the Navy and the history. And then we went to an arcade. And then we went, we just kind of did everything. We went to a dinner beachside with like the fresh seafood, and it was great.
It sounds great.
The battleship was a real thrill for the kids too. Cohen, even after I overheard him as we're walking on the streets of Norfolk. He goes, "Dad, I was surprised by how not boring that was." That is a win in my book. That's
a huge compliment.
Yeah,
because I can tell he's like what he was most excited about too, which I found this interesting. We got to tour this retired battleship, which served our country dutifully from World War I up until the Gulf War conflict. Cohen was very excited that for some reason that this battleship had a jail within. Cameron and Cohen and Noah got lost basically exploring the bowels of this ship. It was like 1,000 degrees yesterday, and this thing's made of metal, so it's just a big floating oven. So I came up for some air. And they got lost down there, and Cohen somehow found an active jail at the bottom of this battleship.
It was really creepy. It's true. There's like 6 cells. Like, what do you have to do?
Active.
Not active like current, but I mean for when the ship. So the ship was decommissioned in like 92. So it was outfitted in the 80s with Tomahawk missiles. So if you recall the famous, this is again dated reference, but the first night of the siege of Baghdad at the beginning of the Gulf War and whatever that was, 89, there was like very famous news footage of just like bombs exploding over Baghdad. Hence the Outkast song "Bombs Over Baghdad," right? 99% of those bombs came from this ship sitting in the Persian Gulf shooting Tomahawk missiles into Baghdad, right? So this is the ship we were exploring, the USS Wisconsin. And sure enough, deep in the bowels of the ship, we came upon a jail. And I'm kind of going, like, who was this jail for? Was it a crew member that got rowdy? Was it
like a drunk tank type thing? Is that what you're thinking? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
See, it was like full-on Barney Fife, Andy Griffith jail, bar cells. That was crazy.
I'll say this, the best theory that we had was, maybe if there was theft on the boat, though I can't remember if it was Noah or Cohen suggested the other crime that you would end up in a jail in the bottom of a battleship. This is what Noah and Cohen, I think, determined. If you snuck a squid on board. I don't know why. They both seemed
contraband,
like pretty solid.
Like a squid.
I agree.
They've seemed both pretty of a solid bond.
Sure.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Now I feel like we're going. This is interesting because between the World War II references, Outcast, Andrew Griffith, and Barney Fife, we really kind of are. And maybe this is just what happens when dads get together. Like, you know, if you guys are just the references. Emily looks lost. Completely. I mean, she's already lost because she's in the middle of a haunted cabin.
I know about
this World War II you speak of. I need to learn about that. But
there was a first one.
Yeah. Okay. Things I learned about Navy battleships. Okay. So one down here, two decks down, where a lot of we saw the barber shop. Of course, there's a barber shop. Sure. We saw a 24-hour ice cream store. They had 24/7 soda fountain ice cream going for morale for the troops. Listen, they had a 24/7 donut shop that had the Krispy Kreme conveyor belt with donuts just 24 hours a day for the crew, like nonstop. Like you just pop in, get a donut, a little ice cream. Yeah.
Sailors got to eat, you know? I mean, it's boring out there, okay?
How do you think you'd feel when you got back from war and everybody's, you know, they're like kissing in the streets, there's fireworks, we won, and everybody's like, you know, I had to take out 5 Nazis with my bare hands, or they had me behind enemy lines, the plane went down, I fought my way back, I had left no man behind. One guy's like, well, you know, if you needed a midnight donut, I was ready 24/7. We never let the donuts. That conveyor belt was always moving.
Okay, their valiant service.
You're like, can you stand, honor the troops? You know, thank you for your service. What did you do? Sure. Well, I served in the Navy. What did you do? I ran the donut shop. Like, it just doesn't have the same warrior connotation.
Yeah, someone's got to do it, okay? And I'll tell you this:
there's no small parts.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
the Army needs if you are out there and if you served our country and if you're part of that and if your role was keeping the donuts and ice cream going the entire time, we salute you. We are grateful for you.
Yeah,
you are part of what makes us a great country. Thank you for your service.
And listen, you should have seen the guns on this boat, right? Yeah. The last thing you need is a bunch of hangry sailors with that kind of, with a finger on trigger, or like a hair trigger, you know, get some donuts in these guys. Let them just, you know, let them think through this. We don't need anyone getting hangry out there. We already are locking up half of them for sneaking squids on board. Okay. They've already done their time. They've done their time in the brig. Okay. They've committed a squid crime. Okay. It's not going to happen again. Get him a donut, pat him on the back. All right, back to work, guys. It's that simple. That was my big takeaway from our tour, Cameron.
Jesse, I didn't even realize we had calamari for dinner. That's what you should do with the squid offendants. You just slice it up and serve it to the troops.
Yeah, I mean, they got the donut conveyor belt, just they got deep fry batter. They're making donuts out of something.
Throw the squid into the donut machine. See what happens. How bad could it be?
All right. We have a great show in store for you today. Coming up later, we talk to Echosmith. You know them. They're the cool kids. Wait, or are they not the cool kids? I'm trying to remember the lyric.
They wish they could be like them.
They wanted to be like the cool kids. Yeah. Want to be cool kids. Echosmith, coming up later. We also have your feedback at the end of the show. And stay tuned right now. Tyler will bring us the buzz.
Need a push sometimes. Don't panic under the slow. Hardest speed, the hardest on themselves, soft in your heart. Get it going, can't get help if you don't even start. Really no rules to it all. Learning as we go. Don't you be fooled by the draw. Everything that shine ain't gold. No quit, pick me up. Useless days, I can't get enough. It makes me wanna sing. Ain't no such thing as better days, better days.
You're listening to Papa Ra. The song is Message, Better Days. Don't confuse that with Paw Patrol. Papa Ra is an indie band. Well, today's show is brought to you by Resilient Hope, a new devotional by best-selling author, popular speaker, human rights activist, Christine Caine. The devotional is going to help you build the endurance and find the strength you need to keep moving forward one mountain at a time through 100 hope-filled devotions. Christine learned from the joys and setbacks of hiking California's mountains that endurance is key to finishing any difficult climb. Drawing on lessons from those mountain trails, she offers resilient hope for times when life isn't turning out like you expected. Each day of Resilient Hope includes a scripture verse, reflections, and stories from Christine, and a prayer. all offered as an invitation for you to embrace the strength God has for you. As the Holy Spirit transforms you from the inside out, you'll become stronger and more confident in your God-given mission. And right now they have a special launch offer for Relevant Podcast listeners. You can save 15% off Resilient Hope at the Christine Kane store. Use promo code RELEVANT15 at resilienthopebook.com. Again, that's code RELEVANT15 at resilienthopebook.com. Okay, it's time for
Relevant Buzz.
All right, Tyler, what's going on this week?
All right, so have you guys, and this is something I'm curious about this. Have you guys ever felt, or do you think, when you think like, man, things are getting more expensive? Like yesterday when you took the boys, when you took Cohen and Noah out for a little spin, you're like, this is just more expensive than it should be, or more expensive than it used to be. Was that a thought that crosses your mind as people who are, all of us on some level, on vacation right now?
Usually when I buy contraband squid, I mean, we're talking $5,
you gotta steal
$6,
that.
$7.
Yeah,
Okay.
seven tops. You got a squid nap.
Yeah, I mean, I paid $11, and I spent 2 hours in the break yesterday. So it's, I mean, everything's all out of whack. Is the answer to your question, Tyler.
You pull up to a drive-through now, and all the menu prices have stickers over them. So it's just like, gee, thanks.
And you blame, obviously, blame inflation on this, and inflation is a real thing that is happening, and that is to be blamed for a lot of this. But there's this interesting study from The Hustle about American pastimes, about the great American pastimes. They looked at 3 things specifically: going to the movies, going to a ball game, going to a baseball game, and going to Disney World. And they found that the prices of those things are not only going up, they're going up way out of sync with actual inflation prices. So, for example, the just going to taking a family of 4 to the movies, we're talking tickets, we're talking concession, all that stuff, and etc. In 2022, that comes out to about $68.73. Now, in 1960, that would have cost $34.15, and that's adjusted for inflation. So over twice as expensive to go to the movies now as it was back then, adjusted for inflation. Same story with the baseball game. On average, they found that a family of 4 pays a little over $200. Tickets, obviously, concessions as well, and the big cost there is for parking. And in 1960, that cost $102.23 adjusted for inflation. So you can't really blame inflation for all of these rising prices. In some cases, you just have to blame people found out that we're willing to pay for this stuff. When Americans go out, they'll inch up the prices a little bit. People are kind of like, I guess it's a little more expensive now, and they just keep buying it. So the inflation is to be expected, but what's happening here as well that is an issue, our paychecks just aren't going up commensurate. Wages just aren't rising commensurate with the rising cost of living in the U.S. And that's not something that you hear talked. It's easy to blame inflation. It's a little harder to talk about things like the wage gap and how many people are still poor, even though they're working, 1, maybe 2 full-time jobs in their households. Now, the last one, like I said, is Disney, and it won't surprise you. Disney, by far, the thing that has gotten the most expensive. Believe it or not, in 1960, the total cost for 4 tickets, 2 adults, 2 children, a one-night hotel stay, and parking to go to Disney World was $359.96. And that's with inflation. In 2022, well over $1,000 to do that as well. So it's almost 3 times as much.
I went to Disney recently. Parking was $319 just for the afternoon. I can't believe it. It really is like, obviously, I think for most people it's milk and groceries and stuff or gas, right? Where you're kind of seeing the direct impact. But it's super expensive to do anything with your family these days that isn't like go to a park or go to the beach or something. Like everything is almost prohibitively expensive. I don't know. Disney's always packed. And that's always like I've kind of wondered too. I mean, is it just one of those things where I guess people just save forever to have the Disney experience? Because everything there just seems preposterously expensive, inflation aside.
Well, the thing that, I live in Orlando. So the local media reports on Disney a lot, 35,000 employees in the city. I mean, it's a big employer. And so the thing that's interesting is that Disney is always selling. It's always sold out. It's always sold out. Like, it's like they can't. How do you make money as a big for-profit corporation? You raise revenue, you raise profits, right? So if you're selling out all the time, and like, how do you raise profits? Well, they got a new CEO, Bob Chapek or Popchek or whatever his name is, a year and a half ago. So he's coming in, and investors are like, okay, how are you going to make us more money? Well, you've got this product that's sold out all the time. Well, he found ways. He took away free stuff, like the free line reservation thing. Well, now you have to pay for it. He found he nickel and dimed everything. So Disney fans are livid and hate this new CEO. Investors love this new CEO because he found a way to take an expensive thing and make it even more expensive. Has nothing to do with inflation. Has everything to do with shareholder returns. And so if you look at these major organizations, like even AMC movie theaters and stuff like that, how are they going to make their shareholders happy and help their stock price not be a joke? We're going to raise revenue. We're going to increase our popcorn prices. We're going to increase ticket prices. I mean, that's what they have to do, because you're going to go to the movie. You want to see the new Top Gun. You're going to pay what it costs. So if it's $20 or if it's $28, you're going to still pay the $28. So they're finding ways to just nickel and dime raise stuff. So everybody just keeps doing what they were doing anyway. They just cost more money. My question is, what are you cutting out of your budget to absorb these price increases? Yeah. What's getting left behind? Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I think that when inflation is in the news, that's an easy thing to blame it on. That darn inflation, guys. Sorry, we have to, but people don't really check the facts on that, because it makes sense. It stands to reason that it would be like that. But it's also the case that, well, for example, the Hustle also did this chart that said back in 1960, 13.5 hours of work, 0.5 hours of work would be enough to cover your entire time, your day at Disney World. In 2022, 26.1 hours of work, a 96% increase from that time just to cover that. A family of 4 at Disney World. And at some point you have to ask, kind of like you're saying, Jesse, a day at the beach can be free, depending on how you do it or how close you are, or people have parks here and stuff like that. So, there's ways to do it. But for a lot of people in Orlando, as you guys know well, Disney World is it. It's the dream come true, and they save up a lot of money for a long time to make it happen.
Yeah, but my question is what are they not doing to save up that money?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Oh, well, you know what? Giving is down at churches. People aren't tithing as much. Maybe they're saving their tithe money for Disney.
Yeah, I think people are having to get creative with their money. So to be honest, I went to Disney World for the first time a month ago, and I had to just shamelessly ask someone I knew to help out. They work for Disney, and I had to not feel bad about asking them to help me out, because I knew that they could help get me in, and which not everyone has that connection, but it's you have to get really creative, because it's I want to go, but I don't want to spend all week working for one day at Disney kind of thing. And so
everybody could have that connection if you just shared his phone number here with our listening audience.
Yeah, I have it right here.
Everyone jot this down.
It got desperate. I had to sneak in a Tigger costume last time. I fashioned it myself and snuck through the gates and just ran into the park.
You could kind of do it.
He was in Disney jail for the next 4 days.
Trust me, you think a battleship jail is bad, you should spend an afternoon in Disney jail. There ain't no donuts down there, I'll tell you that.
An air-conditioned Disney jail.
You could reverse Shawshank it and sneak your way into Disney jail, bust out, and then you're actually in the park. It'd be the cheapest possible way to probably do it.
No one try this at home. This is not good advice.
But it would be free.
I feel like you just outlined the plot of a zany family comedy of a father. He has to get his family to Disney. Inflation's through the roof. Okay, he just got laid off, but he's going to sneak into Disney via Disney jail and then stage an escape for him and his family. I'm watching that movie. Okay,
I feel like Adam Sandler's starring in this as well.
Jailbreak everybody in Disney jail. It's not just his family. Well, it's the found family. They all become family in there, and then they take over Disney
classic
World. Disney's gonna love this.
Literally, yeah, that's a perfect new Netflix Adam Sandler movie. I mean, he puts out 5 a year. So I think they're just an open call for concepts for Adam Sandler Netflix movies. So they're probably going to use this, Emily.
Do y'all just get discouraged when you hear this price stuff? It's just man, life is just getting so expensive.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I went shopping yesterday in Denver, and I bought a pair of sunglasses because that was the only thing I could justify buying, because there were other things I wanted, but I was I'm not going to pay this much money for something that is not worth, in my mind, not worth this much money, and so that was frustrating. It's I feel like I'm window shopping, and it's I work a full-time job. I shouldn't be that concerned with like how much I'm spending. I mean, you have to be smart about it, but it's just like, I had to like really justify, like, is this worth spending this much money on it? And it just is not as fun when you don't get to spend your money freely.
You decided to alter your budget so you could afford the sunglasses. You decided to stay at the Blair Witch Project cabin in the mountains.
Yes.
So that's the trade-off. You either have a nice place to stay or you stay in a satanic haunted cabin.
I haven't had a single good night's sleep.
Did you get the sunglasses from They Live so you can actually see the ghosts around you? Because I would recommend it.
Like night goggles.
Look, I don't like that I cut corners and now I'm staying at a cheap haunted place where likely it will steal my soul before the end of the trip. But these designer Ray-Bans, I mean, they're polarized, guys. Okay, so
looks so cool.
Fell off the back of a boat. Yeah.
Can you put a price on that? If you die, you die looking good.
Yeah.
Bury me in these sunglasses.
Yeah. Look, I am concerned that I woke up with strange scratch marks all up and down my arm last night, but you should see what I look like in these sunglasses.
I do have a scratch mark on my neck. I don't know where I got it from.
I do.
A tick.
I do.
It's a tick. You have Lyme disease.
Mulder and Scully from the
like
X-Files
it's a
roll
long
up and they're like, we had it's terrible. There's a ghost homicide in Colorado. There's one victim. She was awesome. She looks very cool. She looks
fantastic.
She was wearing
sunglasses.
Sunglasses.
You should see
super
the
cool.
sunglasses we found her in.
It was worth it.
Very cool.
What else do you have, Tyler?
Didn't want to bring this story. This is something that's a little bit of a cause for a concern. And this doesn't happen. I'm only starting to learn a little bit about the mechanics behind something like this. But when you picture a butterfly, what you're picturing is probably the monarch butterfly. It's the butterfly that's orange and black with you know what I'm talking about, monarch butterflies.
Yeah.
Last week got added to the endangered species list officially by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. Now, they don't take these steps lightly. It takes a lot of red tape, a lot of bureaucracy to get an animal species added to the endangered species list. But in this case, it was very serious and dramatic steps have to be taken to repopulate the world with monarch butterflies. It's a little difficult to get numbers. Scientists believe the population of monarch butterflies in North America has declined somewhere between 22 and 72% over the last decade. That they call that a free fall. In the eastern U.S., which was their primary habitat, teeming with monarch butterflies as recently as the 90s, the population has fallen between 85 and 95% over the last 25 years or so. So we're talking about a huge depletion, even from you can probably remember when you were kids seeing videos of the butterfly migration, which is 1,000 miles from Mexico to the U.S. This is the longest insect migration that scientists know about. And now it's just dwindled down to very, very few, very sparse. Lots of reasons for it and lots of steps now being taken to fix it. But it is actually something that scientists are asking for people to help out in. That there's things we can do. We who live in the U.S. can take some steps to help repopulate monarch butterflies for people who are concerned about it.
Like, give us those steps.
The big one, have you heard of this thing, creating like a bee friendly yard where you plant like flowering plants that bees can collect pollen from to help repopulate the honeybee situation. Same thing can happen with butterflies. You can plant what's called because a grassy yard or big yards that are just green grass, they look nice. For a butterfly, that's basically a desert. There's nothing for them to land on. There's nothing for them to eat. So when they're flying over the U.S. and increasingly industrialized, urbanized U.S., they're not seeing anything for them to stop and eat. They eat this thing that's called milkweed. It doesn't actually have any milk in it. It's a very pretty flowering plant. It would look nice in anybody's garden. And researchers are saying anybody who wants to, you can plant a bunch of milkweed in your yard, in your garden, and if you have a flower pot, flowering bed, put it out there. It not only looks nice, but you might get a bunch of butterflies as well during the time when they migrate. That would be nice. I just
Googled milkweed and all the pictures show butterflies on the milkweed.
Yeah. It's their favorite. I guess it's just their candy. It'd be nice for them. So that's it's a little thing, but that would be a weird one. The monarch butterfly would be a weird one to lose. It'd be one of those it'd be hard to imagine a world without them. But right now, if something doesn't change, that is the world we are looking at.
Okay. I mean, again, God's creation, I'm all for keeping everything thriving. But my question is, when they talk about the bees going extinct or dying off, like the ramification on the global food supply is catastrophic. Is there any ecological or dietary, because I know they spread pollen and stuff, so is there anything that like they're foreboding, like it's gonna if you don't have the pollination of the monarch migration, it'll turn America into a desert or something. I mean,
it's interesting you asked that, because I did look into that a little bit, and apparently that's a very soft science. Like the thing is, it's hard to say because we just don't know, right? It's all, you can do a lot of hypothetical guesswork on it. Now like for example, one speculation is bats eat a lot of butterflies. So during the butterfly migration, you see a lot of bats.
So maybe we should kill the bats.
Is that a problem? Do people want bats? Yeah. What's the problem? And then it's like, if you take bats out of the equation, then what happens? There's just the ripple effect can be really, really hard to chart. But that's why you don't want to test.
Literally,
you don't want to see what happens.
Like that whole time travel scenario.
Yeah.
We need to get Ashton Kutcher on
have to find a new name for it.
Yeah, clearly, this is an Ashton Kutcher issue.
We need the butterfly effect too.
You know what it feels like? We need to get Nicolas Cage, like a Nicolas Cage film where he saves the world from butterfly extinction,
like an ecological disaster.
Steal the monarch butterflies.
But don't you kind of feel like that would, in concept, like it would just be him making a butterfly friendly yard for 2 hours? Like the pitch is like,
I need more milkweed.
Let's get milkweed. Yeah. And it's just him, just planting milkweed.
Doing a planting situation.
Yeah, just a static shot of Nicolas Cage working in real time.
No, it's him identifying who or what is killing off all the butterflies, and he understands, because he's a scientist in this movie. He understands the importance of the butterflies, and he realizes that it's an intentional thing from this evil genius who's trying to overthrow national governments or something like that, and he's going to take down the butterflies. And so he goes on a quest as a scientist to stop the evil guy with his bats, because the guy is obviously training bats to kill all the butterflies, and he's going to take him out. That's where it becomes a thriller.
We're coming up with a lot of great movie ideas for Hollywood.
There's a lot of them.
Hollywood,
this is an easy one.
So what was the first one?
Starts out
these. Is the first one the family breaking into Disney jail to break out?
Reverse Shawshank.
Yeah.
Reverse Shawshank.
Disney jail.
But that's out of Disney jail. You said. See, I see. That's a Nicolas Cage one too.
Different audiences.
I think that's a Nicolas Cage one too.
I think a lot of actors could be in the Disney jailbreak one.
Yeah, but
I don't. But I like Sandler.
Okay.
Or he's on the upswing right now. He's hot. He's hot right now. He's got the Uncut Gems thing, so he could bring a lot of dramatic heft to it.
So you're thinking this isn't zany Adam Sandler breaking in and out of Disney jail to save a dime for his family. You're thinking this is dark, gritty, like Safdie Brothers Adam Sandler, where this is actually a metaphor for the death of the American dream, is what you're telling me, Tyler.
I think we're
gonna do this. We're gonna do this Meet the Crump style. Adam Sandler plays both his gritty self and his comedic self, and they're both trying to get there. They're twin brothers. They've been estranged over time, lived very different lives. They've both got families now. They both got to get into Disney. They do it together. Both roles played by Adam Sandler. Maybe the wives and children also played by Adam Sandler. We got to see what that. I don't know if that's a budget
Wasn't
thing.
He in a movie where he played his own sister at one point? Isn't that the plot of an Adam Sandler film?
Jack and Jill.
Yeah, Jack and Jill. This has been done.
He could do it.
Listen, if you could just hypothetically name the absurd plot of a movie, it's likely already an Adam Sandler movie. So I don't,
true.
That's the one trick.
Yeah. All right, that'll do it for Relevant Buzz. Make sure to follow Relevant for all the latest. We're publishing every day, every weekday over at relevantmagazine.com, and follow us on all the socials to not miss a thing. All right, stay tuned. Up next, Echosmith joins us.
A whole generation lost with no promise. Can you feel my love? Do you know my pain? It's in my head every night. I replay a deadly game for a natural born killer. I'm a natural born killer.
You're listening to Highly Suspect. The song is Natural Born Killer. Well, today's show is also brought to you by BetterHelp. Now, stress shows up in all kinds of ways, from headaches to teeth grinding to digestive issues. Stress affects our bodies in big and little ways. And in a world that's telling you to do more, sleep less, and grind all the time, here's your reminder to take care of yourself. Do less, and maybe try some therapy. Therapy is a great way to work through all the stress in your life, whether it's big, small, or somewhere in between. And BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy. Give it a try and see if online therapy can help lower your stress. And right now, Relevant Podcast listeners can get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/relevant. That's BetterHelp.com/relevant to save 10%. Well, our guests today are Sydney and Noah from Echosmith. You know them. They're the siblings behind songs like Bright and Cool Kids. They sat down with our very own downtown Emily Brown to talk about how they've grown as artists and adults over the years, how they're finding their own sound, and why they're not afraid to let their faith guide their futures. Here's our conversation with Echosmith.
Call it what you want, more than just obsessive. All I want is for you to hang around. If you're like a fire, then I'm pour gasoline. I just wanna hang around. If I'm like an earthquake, you see past the fault in me. I just wanna hang around.
Well, I'm excited to talk to you about your new music that is coming out. What can fans kind of expect from the new music and maybe the new sound?
We honestly, we never really stopped writing music. Just in general, when we're in between albums, we're always trying to make sure that we're staying creative. So, even after COVID hit, we were, writing songs and trying to figure out what we wanted to do musically, and what the next step was. And there was definitely some trial and error involved, as always, when you're trying to discover your new sound and what you even want to talk about, not just what you want to sound like. And it honestly happened in one day, where it was lots of prep work, but one day on a hot August day, we were at one of our home studios in LA, and we started this song, and we were like, wait, that came out really naturally, and that feels really good. And it kind of just happened, which doesn't always happen. And we listened back the next day and we were like, wait, I think this is the direction. And that song that we made that day was Hang Around. So it is just so fitting that that's the first song to come out. So, people can just expect, it just feels like this is who we always were kind of meant to be musically. And we've kind of given ourselves permission to just sound how we want to sound without, worrying about too many logistics or what other people are going to think. We really just wanted to make something that felt really true to us and came from our hearts. So yeah, that meant digging into our roots a little bit more musically, and getting a little more raw with instruments and, having some more grit in the music. But it also just meant, letting things happen naturally and, letting ourselves just truly see what we wanted to do creatively, as a band, as opposed to, again, worrying too much about outside opinions. And that's honestly how art should be. So we're just so excited for people to hear this whole new chapter. And I think this is the best song to really set the tone.
Is it ever nerve-wracking to kind of do something completely different than what you've done before?
Yeah, I think there's always some anxiety that's produced from venturing into the mystery. And I think so much of the music industry is that it's stepping into the unknown. And did I just quote Frozen? Oh boy. I don't like myself now. But
inspiration.
Yeah, right. The whole album is based off of Frozen. No, but really, I feel like we're just, as we dive deeper, and we're growing up too and all that, we're in our 20s now, and we're diving into that season of life and kind of unpacking our hearts and our feelings and unpacking who we are as people and how we want to present that to the world. And I think that honesty and that vulnerability is really beautiful, and it's really good. And I hope that is seen through the music. And even though it's kind of scary to open yourself up to that, and to do that in a way that you haven't done before, I hope and pray that it's actually fruitful and a good thing for our fans, our friends, people listening that need hope or need that inspiration or care that music can give.
You sprinkle stardust on my pillowcase. It's like a moonbeam brushed across my face. Nights are good, and that's the way it should be. see that shooting star tonight? Were you dazzled by the same constellation? Did you and Jupiter?
I feel like that's such a relatable thing where, someone kind of recognizes that they maybe need to be honest and vulnerable about something. But a lot of times people don't really know how to push past that. So, like when you feel that fear, how do you, or where do you get the strength to push past that and be honest?
Should ask my counselor I was talking to yesterday. I really do feel like music is conversation. Music is dialogue. And for us, it goes back to conversation between us. And I think as we've been writing this record, we as siblings have become way closer. So I think honestly, just the willingness to say here I am, here's what I'm experiencing, here's where I'm anxious, here's where I'm excited, and being able to do that even just as bandmates. And then for that to be that's where our music is coming from now. And I don't think our music has always come from that point, these aren't just conceptual things anymore. We want our music to truly care for souls. That's something we talk a lot about. And we feel like we can't do that unless we're truly laying out our burdens. And sometimes it's a song that is about love and excitement. And sometimes it's a song of lament to God and a prayer that we share and we're angry, or it can really range. But I do believe that truthfulness is what we're all called to as human beings, and that I think is very important for music, to be truthful and to be honest and to beg when you feel like you need to beg, to cry out when you feel like you need to cry out, and to scream when you need to scream, or to rejoice when you need to rejoice. I think that faithfulness to the moment, faithfulness to the expression of ourselves, because if we don't do that, we're just going to hold it in. I know what it feels like to hold it in, and it's not good. But music really has, become this vehicle where you can just kind of let it all out. Joy, sorrow, everything in between.
Yeah. And I think what can kind of be encouraging to anybody, no matter, where they're at, what their age is, where they work, where they live, I think it's really important to really try to find your community, because that's something for me that I didn't really feel like I could show these certain sides of myself because I didn't really have that many great friends that I could actually trust to tell things to. So I think it's about also who you're around, and also being intentional of making those friendships, of putting in the effort, even if that feels oh, I don't want to bug somebody, putting in the effort to at least have someone in your life that you can open up to about the things that feel even scary to say out loud. But you need to have someone you can trust. But until then too, and even while you have that, I've gone into journaling, and that's been really helpful with just reflecting and realizing things. And, sometimes you don't always have someone you can call in that exact moment. People have different work hours, and it's really helpful to have something to, again, put it literally on paper, and having people around you that can, even just be a trusted ear, can be really helpful with that, because it's scary to open up, and you kind of have to experiment. I'm going to tell someone something and see how it feels. And usually, if it's a good person, it ends up being a great conversation, and you feel, just a little bit relieved afterwards because you had something you could go to. So that's what I would encourage. And that's something that I've literally seen firsthand for myself.
Yeah, they're invincible, and she's just in the background. And she says, I wish that I could be like the cool kids, 'cause all the cool kids, they seem to fit in. I wish that I could be like the cool kids, like the cool kids.
That was Echosmith. You can read more of that conversation in the summer issue of Relevant. It's available for free. Go check it out at relevantmagazine.com. Click on the magazine tab. It's right there. The summer issue is presented by our friends at World Vision. All right, stay tuned. Up next, it's your feedback.
My head feeling empty. Can't believe I'm awake. I'm so used to what I see now. Things that used to freak me out. I tell you, but you're not around. It's not like you would do
listening to Sundarta. The song is Store Bought Disguise. I have a few of those. All right, it's time for your feedback. Last week we got talking about how it's so stinking hot right now in Paris and UK. Runways were melting. Animals were keeling over dead in the fields. It's just tragedy. It's horrible. Horrible, Emily. You should be more sensitive. It's just hot everywhere.
Butterflies are just evaporating.
They're dropping out of the sky. Their wings are catching on fire the higher to the sun they get.
Just turn into steam. Yeah.
They vaporize. I was walking down the street the other day. A dead on fire butterfly fell on my head. It was the
it's dead and on fire.
Yes. It was terrible.
It's still flying.
It's happening all over the country.
Things are spontaneously combusting is what I'm saying. It's so hot.
Okay. Sorry.
I was in the bowels of a ship jail. It was so hot. I'm just saying.
The only escape. The only escape was in a ship jail. It's the only cool place. Bad situation. And
so hot.
Yeah, people are breaking squid rules just to get locked up to get a break from the heat. That's getting crazy out there, people.
All right, so we asked you, what are you doing this summer to beat the heat? What's your favorite way to beat the heat this summer? You guys absolutely disappointed us with your lack of creativity. You hit us up on Twitter at Relevant Podcast, and here's some of our favorites. There's not many.
And there is one. I just want to point it out because I wasn't on for this, so you requested specifically creative ways to beat the heat.
Yeah.
Yes.
Levi, I like you. I like you, Levi. I'm sure you have the soul of a poet and
I
an
think
artist.
he's great. In fact, his screen name is Great Levi.
Great Levi. He's a great guy, and this doesn't diminish your greatness at all. But AC. Two letters, single word response, A/C. I don't know if I'd call that a creative solution to beating the heat, Levi. That's a pretty standard.
What was it? Levi, let me ask you something. What was the point of that? What was the point of that tweet?
Wasting your time and ours.
Yeah,
buddy.
okay.
I think he just wanted to brag that he had AC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel like
that's a brag. And
I was going to say that's not much of a
Tyler
flex.
it is.
That doesn't seem like a huge flex.
Well,
Air conditioned air. Thank you, Levi. What stimulating discussion you have teed up for us by your suggestion that people beat the heat by going into cooler air. Yeah, thank you, Levi.
Freaking Captain Nemo over here.
He's probably like a librarian or a scientist. If that to him is creative, like just Right.
Maybe he has a creative AC that we don't know about. Maybe AC stands for something else.
Scientists.
I'm just saying they're analytical. They're not. They don't understand the creative.
Yeah, that's as creative as they get.
Left right brain.
Now
thing.
Nicole is thinking. Nicole
She's
is using her noggin here. Yeah, this isn't a bad idea. Stand inside the freezer drawer for 5 minutes. That's something. That's different.
5 minutes.
That takes some ingenuity. That's a long time.
5 minutes is a long time.
That's a couple songs.
You're melting.
And it's like, I know she means just like a regular refrigerator, like a normal freezer door, but I'm also imagining like an industrial kitchen with like, you just go into that freezer and like plug yourself in there. And that is creative.
Room at Costco, where you just like go in and it's like frigid.
I wonder how many people are at grocery stores just like taking a slow stroll through like the frozen or like grocery section. That's how they're beating the heat.
That sweaty guy has been in the beer cooler for like 10 minutes now. Just browsing.
The Wawa beer room. You just go in there and like look like you're looking.
Which by the way,
some coldness.
That's got to be the most inefficient room in the whole grocery store. Why not just have, you know what I mean? Like, this is the size of a living room that they're keeping it, all cold in there. That seems inefficient, but it's a good way to beat the heat, I guess.
Isaac Medina said frozen eye and muscle wraps. That's interesting. So you keep them in the freezer, and then normally it'd be for aches and pangs and swelling.
Frozen
eye wraps.
I don't know what an eye wrap is.
I think that's like a spa thing, like a facial thing.
Yeah,
Emily, tell us.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like an eye mask, but yeah, it's like you can freeze it, and it helps with like puffiness normally. That's what you typically use it for. But apparently you can also cool your eyes down if they're really hot.
Well, listen, the thing about once my eyes get all sweaty, I know the heat's bad. Okay, they're just pouring need some eye sweat relief. I like Jake. His suggestion for beating the heat is to avoid Boise, Idaho. Jake, I've been avoiding it for a long time. Heat wave aside.
Duly noted, sir.
Yeah, and I'm going to continue that strategy of Boise avoidance.
On his recommendation.
Yeah. But,
10-4.
Was that even...
the Boise Tourism Council is livid right now that he just wrote that in.
They are scrambling to figure something out.
Boise's pretty far north. How How
Dude, no, there's a heat wave in the West right now that's like
pretty. I've seen some of that. Is it going as far north as Idaho?
Yeah. I stopped in Salt Lake City a week and a half ago, and it was 113 degrees, and the entire state was on fire. Yeah. I mean, I think of Salt Lake City, mountains, Park City, Utah, being beautiful, snow-capped mountains, and I mean, like the state was on fire. It was so hot. So. Yeah.
I want to clarify. I just looked up what the temperature is in Boise right now. It's 81 degrees.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
all right. Well, all right. My
now
sympathy
I'm avoiding
is
Boise because I'm annoyed.
Yeah.
There are purely out of crybabies up there. They can't handle it above 74.
Just don't want to
This
go to Boise.
tweet would have worked so good if it weren't a reply to us asking how to be the. If you had a friend that just one day you're just scrolling Twitter, just checking what's up, and someone that you knew just tweeted avoid Boise, Idaho, and with no context, wouldn't you be like, okay, something cool, something went down in Boise. I need to know. There's an interesting story behind it. This is potentially one of the most interesting tweets ever written. But too bad it's a reply. But if someone just tweeted avoid Boise, Idaho, I gotta know. Unpack that for me. Why are you tweeting that? What happened?
I start making calls.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, there's more feedback where that came from. There's equally uninspiring feedback where that came from. If you want to go check out our mentions on Relevant Podcast Twitter account. All right. So it's time for this week's
editorial question of the week.
Earlier, we were talking about how darn expensive, sorry for my language, parents, how darn expensive it's getting just to do anything these days. So here's what we want. We want your help coming up with creative being the optimal word. So if you're a scientist or librarian, you don't have to answer. A creative way to pass the time or do things to make memories and have fun on the cheap. What do you do? What are you doing this summer to entertain yourself on the cheap? And don't just say stay home and watch TV. I'm talking about going out with friends to do something, make a memory on the cheap. What's your creative solution?
And we're already assuming, so you don't need to tweet us, we're already assuming you're avoiding Boise, okay? So because we know nothing throws a bucket of cold water on a fun weekend planned like accidentally passing through Boise. So it's just given that Boise
avoiding Boise.
Yeah,
avoiding Boise is free.
Yeah,
we know it's. I mean, it's good. It's fun. It's free. It's easy. But we need a little more.
Step further, just one step further.
Doesn't it, Tyler? If doesn't it feel like avoiding Boise was like could have been the name of like an old Tooth and Nail like emo band?
Yeah,
from
one of those.
yeah,
avoiding Boise. Yeah, like the indie band, like on the OC soundtrack or something.
Yeah. Oh, that new song from Avoiding Boise, man. Oh,
I love avoid. You can make it to the Avoiding Boise show.
We were playing poker late last night, and Jesse was regaling us with a playlist, a hand-selected playlist of early 2000s indie music that he and his wife fell in love with.
It's all I do, man.
Yeah. It's like
all I do. It's my Friday night soundtrack.
Like
I just get pumping the early aughts indie bands.
Yeah. It was 1:30 in the morning, eating chips and salsa, listening to like a Band of Horses song. Life just doesn't get any better. And none of us were even close to Boise, and that was the kicker. There was no chance.
Cherry on top.
There was no chance we'd have any interactions with Boise too. So
that makes a good night. Yeah. All right. Hit us up on Twitter at Relevant Podcast and tell us your creative ways that you are making memories this summer on the cheap. Well, before we wrap things up, I want to thank Echosmith for joining us today. Make sure to head over to relevantmagazine.com to see the rest of that conversation in the brand new issue of Relevant. And while you're there, check out the rest of the stuff in the summer issue. We've got conversations with Naomi Rain from Maverick City Music, John Favreau, Rainn Wilson, so much more. And it's all available for free, like I mentioned, brought to you by World Vision. And if you haven't already, check out Relevant Plus. Relevant Plus subscribers actually get an enhanced ad-free version of the magazine. They also get ad-free viewing at the website, unlimited articles, an ad-free and early release version of this podcast, and exclusive subscriber content throughout the year, including another podcast. Go check it out. Plans start as low as $2.50 a month, and it's the best way to view our content. And make sure, one last thing, just make sure that relevantmagazine.com is part of your daily web browsing. It's a great way to stay in the loop. You may have missed a tweet, you may have missed a post that we put out, but if you just look at our website, we look right there on the homepage, you'll see everything we're talking about every day. It's a great way to keep your finger on the pulse. All right, on that note, we'll wrap things up. I'm Cameron Strang.
I'm Jesse Carey.
I'm Tyler Huckabee.
I'm Emily Brown.
We'll see you next time. Have a great week, everyone.
listening to the Relevant Podcast. Check out our features, interviews, and news updates every day at relevantmagazine.com. And make sure to follow Relevant on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest. For more great podcasts, browse the shows on the Relevant Podcast Network, which you can find at our site. And while you're there, don't miss the all-new era of Relevant Magazine. A new issue releases every other month at relevantmagazine.com.
It got desperate. I had to sneak in a Tigger costume.
Relevant Podcast Network.